Thank you, Simon. Good to be here. Whilst I've been doing this job for the last 2 years, I've sort of given updates at this conference. So having concluded the 2-year appointment about 6 weeks ago and my final report coming out, it's good to come back and provide you with an update of where we've been and where we're going. I suppose if I was trying to capture some of what the final report says, it's to try and understand why, when so much is being done in the name of reducing bureaucracy, has so little of it got the necessary traction to deliver the anticipated benefits and necessary change. That's the sort of section that came out of it. I mean, we've all been terribly busy, but you do have to ask yourself, where has that busyness taken us and what have we achieved? I suspect we have achieved much, but it doesn't feel. It feels like knitting fog and pushing water uphill at times, and I'm not sure we've actually gained the benefits that we could and should have done. So I want to say sort of 4 things really today. One is around, my message is the talking should be over. We've got to start doing things now. I think we also have to understand, why are we at this point? Why is it that some really good ideas have not got the traction that was necessary for them to actually be delivered into mainstream policing? We do need to move to solutions, and I think some people need to stand up and they need to take responsibility. And as I will try and explain, that needs to happen at a number of different levels. And finally, and the most challenging but the most important, is there has to be a change of mindset and a cultural shift. And it really goes along the lines that Jane was talking about, where we have to learn. You know, why hasn't something worked? And rather than trying to point fingers and take the responsibility off our own shoulders, to try and understand how we could have done things better. And for that to be the mindset of people within the service, rather than try and say, well, it wasn't my fault, which tends to be too often. Jane talked about the new Police Reform and Social Responsibility Bill. There's a lovely line in a lot of the government speeches at the moment around going from bureaucratic accountability to democratic accountability. It's a great soundbite, but it's when the detail of that comes to fruition will be the real key. And I just hope, I'm not going to talk a lot about police commissioners today, but I just hope that we're not adding another layer of bureaucracy to that we already have, and that we do take the opportunity to rationalise and sort out some of the difficulties about who is responsibility for what, and what does success look like. And I think those are 2 questions which I have continually asked of government ministers, of chief constables, of police officers, and everybody struggles with the answer. And if we come out at the end of the parliamentary debates on the bill that's going through now, without having good answers to those questions, then we won't have taken up an opportunity. There's that wonderful saying that never allow a crisis to go by. And we are in crisis now, and if anything is going to make the change, the financial imperatives over the next few years will be that. And the point that Simon made around front-loading the changes for policing is going to be a real challenge. That was me, I apologise. Right. If you've been to any of my presentations before, you've probably seen this slide before. That has got an additional one at the bottom. And I'm just going to sort of give you a very quick context of. We've been talking about this, as I said earlier on, for far too long, starting with the diary of a constable when people realised just how much time officers were spending inside police stations rather than outside, talking about safety and security. The task force in 2002, which Sir David O'Dowd led, if you were looking at that through today's eyes, you probably wouldn't write it much different. Criminal justice, performance management, inspectorates, government initiatives and data burden are still where the problems are 8 years further on. But what Sir David O'Dowd also did is he set out a series of principles, and it's all very well reinventing the wheel, but there is absolutely no point because there's nothing wrong with these principles. And if forces were just going to, if forces were going to do nothing else but introduce these principles throughout their their work, then there'd probably be an awful long way to some of the solutions. Ronnie Flanagan, the then Chief Inspector of Constabulary in 2008, I think he did a report in 2007 as well, he came up again with very similar findings to the ones that Sir David O'Dowd spoke about. Rebalancing the performance framework, sorry, is that me doing that, or? I don't think I'm doing anything. So Ronnie talked about responding according to threat, harm and risk. He recognised that all the demands that there are on police, we can't meet all of those demands. And so when you start to work out what it is you could and should be doing, then that's not a bad guideline. Proportionate and ethical recording, I'll come back onto that. Again, data collection, a data burden that Sir David O'Dowd talked about. Streamlining and standardising key processes, and what is really difficult for an awful lot of officers, still not having integrated IT. I have to say some do, but the vast majority don't. And I'm with those people who don't, because they drastically need it when they're putting the same information in time and time again. So that's a very quick run through. I came onto the scene in 2008, and I tried not to repeat what other people had said. And we do need to start looking at causes and not symptoms. I got quite cross with a lot of politicians, and the current government are no different. Bureaucracy is not about pieces of paper. It's about the systems and the processes that hide behind those pieces of paper. And likewise, bureaucracy is more than the stop and search forms. It's the systems and processes that create that in the first place. And we do have to move the argument about bureaucracy and understanding it beyond those particular points. You also have to look, and this is the point that Simon spoke about earlier on as well, is about the criminal justice system. The police are just one part of a system that is totally fragmented. We've got different performance measures. They're not complementary performance measures, and in fact, they're quite contradictory in places. So the police can look very good in their little part, but that's totally different to what the courts might look like, and what the Crown Prosecution Service might look like, and what the prisons might be seeking to do. And until such times we have a common and complementary performance framework that goes from one end of the criminal justice system to the other end, then we will have continuous waste within the system. But the biggest part of my final report, as I said earlier, was about we need to address what the barriers to change were. And in my final report, I've tried to identify that. First of all, confused accountability and responsibility. This works at a local level. There's a lot of overlapping of work between community safety partners, between criminal justice partners, between local councils and police. And in the current financial climate, we cannot afford that. There are some areas where it works particularly well. And that's normally down to the individuals within those areas who make it work. In general, there are too many gatekeepers and there are too many decision makers. Within policing, we pass information on and don't deal with it as quickly as we could. Sometimes you do need to pass it on. Sometimes, if it's more serious, if the risk is more great, then you do need to pass information on. You do need to bring in specialist assistance and support to deal with it. But if you were to call in today to many police forces with a minor crime, that can go through 5 or 6 different people before anybody comes out to deal with it. And you do have to question whether that is necessary. I was talking to a young police officer in Wales. He had about 15 months service, and he was investigating quite a minor, but to the victim, quite a serious burglary. He was a probationer officer. Can I say probationer anymore? Student. He was a student officer, and doing the investigations, and he had 9 supervisors overseeing his investigation of that. I think that says it all. So there's too many gatekeepers passing on of information and also passing on the decision-making as well. So excess handling and handing on information, the blame culture is still there, alive and well, and people are petrified. There's a lot of officers who do not make decisions or pass those decisions on to other people because of the blame being felt. And this is around, I think, sometimes, and I say that, and I was extraordinarily proud to be involved in the Brave Officer of the Year award. So let's not pretend that there aren't brave cops out there, because there are really brave cops out there. There's a lot of other people who sometimes don't take the decisions and don't make those decisions that maybe they should do because of that.